Hey, and welcome back. I'm Ashley.
And I'm Xander.
And this is Thailand, where today we'll be feeding elephants and going clubbing? Oh, that's new. Thailand is one of our dad's favorite countries because he taught scuba diving there, and honestly, it's a really nice place.
Our flight to Bangkok was on a Singapore Airlines 777-200. We've flown with Singapore Airlines a few times before in business class. The service was always really good, and so was the food. Although the meals were always a little bit messy, but that doesn't matter. The food was tasty, and that's all I really want. The seats were really big and comfy, and the cabin was decorated with a few wreaths for the holidays. It was a 2-hour flight to Bangkok, so I didn't have too much time to enjoy the cozy business class cabin. After we landed, we hopped on a Thai Airways 777-200 and flew over to Chiang Mai, a pretty big city in northern Thailand. We arrived at our hotel pretty late at night, so we went straight to bed. On our first day in Chiang Mai, we explored the city, got some rolled ice cream, visited a temple or two, and found a seaweed shop. Once the sun went down, we went to a night market. It's pretty much a regular market, but it only opens at night. There, we went shopping, but didn't get anything, although we ate dinner there and got some Thai iced tea.
Thai iced tea is tea with a bunch of spices added to it, along with sweetened condensed milk and evaporated milk. It's very tasty, but usually extremely oversweetened, and dilution is necessary to avoid a sugar-induced death. Oh, fun fact, and I just learned this. That orange color is just food coloring. Yep.
The second day was the big day. We went to an elephant sanctuary, and we spent the entire day out, up before sunrise, back after sunset.
We got picked up pretty early in a big van. The driver had to pick up some more tourists, so what would have been a 1-hour ride turned into a 2-hour one. When we finally got there, the group could see some elephants hanging around in a pretty big fenced area, and naturally we all swooned. Well, maybe except for Xander. The driver shooed us into a little building, and our guide, Tiger, told us a little about the Asian elephants they have here, and the differences between them and African elephants, because if you didn't notice, they look pretty different. Asian elephants are just in general smaller. Smaller bodies, smaller ears, smaller tusks. Oh yeah, unlike their fellow African species where both genders are fitted with glorified tree scratchers, only Asian males have them. Females don't get any. Tiger says all the elephants in Africa need tusks because everything's trying to eat them. So yeah, I guess that's why. Asian elephants used to be work animals, doing chores, going into war and destroying everything, the usual. After the quick briefing, we were given clothes that feel suspiciously like potato sacks to change into. A few coats of sunscreen and questionable mosquito death juice later, we all climbed into a truck and drove to a sugarcane field. Then it was down into the fields, chopping up sugarcane for the elephants. There were a lot of ants all over the place because, ants, sugar, love at first sight. But seriously, there were so many ants. And as the cherry on top, the leaves of the sugarcane are not only sharp, but covered in evil spine thingies, so even the lightest touch results in like 15 super thin splinters embedded in your skin. It was fun though, and easier than I anticipated. I've never harvested sugarcane before, so I can just check that off the list. Once we got back, the group took turns chopping the sugarcane into bite-sized pieces. A good mindset is to imagine taking the heads off of your enemies with as much force as possible. Just kidding. No, I'm not. It actually did help. And then the moment arrived. We had to feed the elephants. A large amount of the group fed the babies the most, which is unfair to the adults because they have bigger stomachs. But the babies were so cute. I just couldn't resist. After a quick recoat of various chemicals, we set off for the forest? Is it a forest? I don't know. Area with trees. Anyway, we took a little elephant family, mom, dad, and baby, for a hike/snack. I got some nice footage, probably too much footage, but here you go. It was quite interesting to watch them grab a little tree and just eat it. Since we spent so much time with the elephants, we had to hurry off to lunch. This part isn't very interesting, so let's just skip to the good stuff. Now is the time to make more nourishment for the giant long-nosed creatures, medicine balls. I know you're probably picturing those shady pills that your parents told you never to eat, but it's not that, don't worry. It's more like a giant wad of nutritional dough. Tamarinds, cooked rice, some sort of bean flour, bananas, and other stuff like that. It got all thrown into a giant bowl, and people took turns breaking apart the tamarind, while I got the honors of mushing it all together with a giant thing. We took the blobs outside where the ravenous Dumbos awaited. It was so fun to tap them on the trunk and pop the dough balls right into their mouths. Now this was the part that I was a little eked out about doing, as I'm not the biggest fan of getting muddy, or just dirty in general. That's right, we were going to bathe them. Walking along the uneven path took a lot of time, but hey, elephants! We arrived at the lake and hopped in with our potato sack shorts, and the water was so cold. It was like an ice bath. The baby got down and started rolling in the water like a balloon. Since the water was really cold and there were other groups arriving, we scrubbed and threw water at the elephants for a bit, then got out and hopped into the truck. Before we did, we spotted a bunch of tourists messing around with the baby elephant, climbing on it, grabbing its trunk to try and get it to spray water, all of that. I think it's fair to say that everyone in the truck was silently seething with varying levels of rage and disgust. The building had 3 little showers, so I just rinsed off and squeezed back into my clothes with my partially damp self. There wasn't much to do after that, so we basked in the sun and hung out a little longer before heading back to the hotel.
Chiang Mai is the capital of the Chiang Mai province and used to be the center of a long-gone kingdom. Because it used to be the capital of that kingdom, it has a fairly large ancient city, which is surrounded by a big wall and a deep moat. Of course, the city couldn't just be contained within the walls and eventually expanded past them. Outside one of the city's main gates is a small plaza, where street performers like to gather. Being only a 5-minute walk away, we went there several times to watch the small shows at the plaza. Along with the street performers, there were street vendors selling these little toys. Catapult them into the air and watch them twirl slowly to the ground. These cheap toys came with a built-in LED, which really made it fun to mess around with at night. Just remember to catch it. If not, they'll probably break, which doesn't matter since you can buy 3 or 4 of them for just $1.
Dad, being Dad, charmed a fruit card lady into letting him make pad see ew, with her guidance of course. The end result was quite tasty and very similar to the original. Now I have to do a segment on this because it is one of my favorite foods. Pad see ew, translated to something along the lines of fried sweet sauce, is a fried noodle dish that is quite popular both in and outside of Thailand. The noodle type is quite unique, a broad, thick rice noodle with just the perfect amount of chewiness. It is also frustratingly hard to find from where we live. It's made with the holy trinity of soy sauces, along with other spices, and usually eaten with Chinese broccoli, egg, and some form of meat.
Alright, boom!
Thank you! We went to the Anusarn. Oh, why do I even try? Arriving super early may not have been the best idea, but we decided to make the most of it and got some dinner, some pretty good satay. And not the dry, bland cardboard ones either. Once we finished eating, we wandered around and admired the merchandise. The stuff here is really cool and the people are so talented. Look at that! This part is just us walking around, so let's just skip, more. Oh, too much, go back. Here we go. The Cabaret Lady Boy Show. I love that they just allow kids in here. That's what I like about places like these. They don't really care that much. I think the people running the show are partners with hearing aid companies because the music was turned up to an ungodly level. Not gonna lie, I spent most of the time trying to find a way to muffle the sound to a more tolerable level, as my earplugs were the half-effort kinds. The camera doesn't really capture it, so let me just turn it up to 500%. There we go. The show was quite long, about an hour and a half, and it was essentially ladyboys dressing up in flamboyant costumes and lip-syncing to songs. As entertaining as it was, you can't have a good show without dragging a poor guy up on stage and groping him, am I right? Ugh. He got a beer though, so maybe it was worth it. The entire performance ran a little long for me, and I think they could have cut it by half an hour or so. The best part was when one of the dancers fell because I'm a heartless being, as is my brother. The show ended, and the performers lined up outside, where they tried to squeeze as much money from their audience as they could. I don't think I took my earplugs out until we got back to the hotel, just to be safe.
Being tourists, we had no vehicle for ourselves, so we had to either call a tuk-tuk or walk. Until my dad decided to rent a moped. The small 1-gear vehicle could only fit 2 people, so it was only useful for trips to the local market. Ashley and I got to try driving the moped up and down a small alley near our hotel. We spent the remaining days in Chiang Mai either walking around the old city, messing around with the moped, or chilling in the hotel rooms. So once we were done with Chiang Mai, we flew over to Bangkok so we could stay there for a few days. We only had 3 days in Bangkok, so we had a few things planned. But first, our dad took us out to have dinner with some of his old friends. Food was good, and that pretty much wrapped the day up. So we went swimming on top of our really fancy hotel. We spent the whole second day out, visiting only 2 destinations we had planned in Bangkok. The first one was a floating market a few hours away from the hotel.
We all hopped into a longtail boat, which is a South Asian boat fitted with a pole that can rotate 180 degrees, allowing for sharper turns. This is quite important for a place like this, where the waterway is narrow and road-like. On the way there, we passed rows of stores on concrete docks. Whenever there was a clear strip of water, our driver would speed up as fast as realistically possible, and those parts were really fun. As we approached the floating market, the driver had us put on life jackets, and we entered the crowd. I know that it's called a floating boat market, but there's still a lot more boats than I had expected. It was very crowded, and the merchants did their best to get our attention. Some things did look interesting, but being a tourist attraction and all, everything was super expensive. There are several floating boat markets in Southeast Asia, but the ones in Thailand, especially Bangkok, seem to be the most popular. Most of the things sold here could probably be found at an ordinary market for like a quarter of the price, so we held off getting anything save for some coconut ice cream. Then we came straight back.
Along with the floating market, there was another really popular place an hour or 2 away from Bangkok. A small part of the Mekong Railway runs straight through a little market. Although the store owners there refused to move, the track was still laid. No big deal, right? Wrong. With the market located down a narrow alley, the track has to run straight down the center of it. Which means, every time a train is scheduled, all the store owners have to clear the tracks of tables, chairs, and produce just enough to make way for the train. The Mekong Railway Market not only attracts thousands of tourists every day, but it also serves as an actual market where locals go to shop. Other than the floating market and train market, we had nothing else to do but enjoy the hotel and wait. After our 3 days in Bangkok were up, we drove for a few hours to our last hotel of the entire trip. It was a Marriott in Rayong, about 100 miles from Bangkok. The rooms were pretty, the building was pretty, it had a big pool and also a beach. I recently got a small, compact drone a few weeks ago in Singapore, and the large, flat lawn in front of the hotel was a great place to test it out. I downloaded an app on my phone and synced it to the drone's camera so I could see what the drone saw in real time, as well as capture really fuzzy photos and videos. As far as I knew, it was a poor man's phantom drone.
Dad did a recce and found a nice little mom-run restaurant a few minutes walk away and took us there for lunch. She was very friendly and cooked us our food by herself fairly quickly. I got patsiu, of course, and so did Xander. The lady, who's called Kun Jum, I think, but I will call her the patsiu lady, also had a table with a bunch of coconuts that she chopped for us in, 30 seconds? I'm the queen of mispronouncing things, so it probably doesn't actually sound like that. After a very tasty lunch, we headed back to the hotel.
Unlike Bangkok or Chiang Mai, we had nothing, absolutely nothing planned in Rayong, so we could relax and enjoy our last hotel of the trip. Although we never really needed to leave the hotel, my dad rented a small bike-trike combo, so we had our own vehicle. It was basically a moped, but with a sidecar bolted to one side. It could carry the whole family, so we spent a lot of time just driving around. And since the small restaurant was less than half a minute's ride down the road, we ate there every single day for dinner, because the food and coconuts there were just really good.
Since the beach by our hotel was absolutely beautiful, we couldn't resist going down and splashing in the waves. This day at the beach was like any other, except for one thing. The shoreline was covered in what looked like dark patches. Upon further inspection, they turned out to be thousands of little balls of sand arranged in an almost maze-like pattern. If you approach the sand maze, you can see a bunch of quick movement, not all that different to a cockroach running into a hole. These tiny cockroaches are called sand bubbler crabs, and they are quite cute. They live in the Indo-Pacific region and come out to feed when the tide goes out. The crabs shovel sand into their mouths and filter out the food, discarding the sand in the form of little balls. Since life as a tiny crab is hard and there are always predators lurking about, they arrange the pellets in a way that they can always scurry back to safety without any obstacles. Then the tide comes back in, washing away all of their hard work as they wait it out in the small pocket of air inside their burrow. We spent a few hours flopping around in the ocean, then headed back.
After a week in Rayong, we had to make a 3-hour drive back to Bangkok to catch our flight to Singapore. Again, Singapore Airlines business class. Seats were smaller than the first flight, food was good, and the flight was pretty short. But I managed to catch a pretty cool sunset while on approach to Singapore. Once we landed at Changi Airport, we were picked up by our grandma and went back to our place to wait out the last 5 days of the trip.
And that wraps up Thailand, the last country on our list. This is a really nice place to visit.
Overall, most of the things we did there were pretty fun. The elephants were cool, the railroad market was nice, and driving around in our own little trike thing was fun.
I really liked the week we spent in Rayong, since it was just really chill for 7 days. Anywho, thanks for watching, and we'll see you on our last episode.